Hi, my name's Joy Coleman. I'm the chair of the Historic Resources Commission, and we're going to get this meeting started. Ellie, would you like to give us some preliminary meeting information?
Yes, Ellie Mullins, planner. Good evening and welcome to the February 20th Historic Resources Commission meeting. With me is Lynn Braddock-Zollner, the Historic Resources Administrator, and Avery Kerner, Planner 2. Together, we will work alongside the chair to facilitate the meeting proceedings. Before we begin, I have a few reminders to share. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. For those who are attending the meeting virtually, please remember to mute yourself when you're not actively speaking to help minimize distractions. When the chair calls for public comment on an item, anyone attending in person may approach the podium to speak. If you are attending the meeting virtually and would like to provide public comment on an item, please use the raise hand function to be called upon. We also ask that everyone state their name before they speak to ensure that everyone is able to follow along. Now I'll turn the meeting back over to the chair.
Thank you, Ellie. Now we'll take a roll call of the commissioners. Commissioner Klein.
Commissioner Klein here.
Commissioner Buchanan.
Here.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Commissioner Cunningham here.
And Commissioner Coleman's here. Commissioner Haynes and Commissioner Dearborn are absent. All right, we'll get right into communications. Have we received communications from other commissions, State Historic Preservation Officer, and the general public?
You do have several communications tonight. One that we'll talk about right now under communications, and then you also had communications for one of your agenda items. It's agenda item number 3. There was communications added to that agenda item. The communication that is added under your communications is from a group that is working on looking at how to protect and probably maybe enhance Hobbs Park. As you know, Hobbs Park is listed in the Lawrence Register of Historic Places. It is not listed in the Kansas or National Register of Historic Places. This group is interested in raising funds to support someone to write that nomination. But because it's city-owned property, the city has to consent to the nomination of the property, and so they want to tell you a little bit about what they're doing, and then they are requesting that you recommend to the City Commission that they allow this group to pursue nomination of the park, specifically the Bromwell Steak House to the Kansas Register and the stadium to the National Register. And the state has already done a PSIQ and found those 2 structures to be eligible in that way.
PSIQ.
Preliminary Information Site Questionnaire.
Thank you.
Are they present tonight? Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrew Stockman. I'm curator of exhibitions at the Watkins Museum of History. I've convened 3 meetings thus far of a working group made up of representatives from the following organizations: East Lawrence Neighborhood Association, Lawrence Preservation Alliance, Kaw Valley Kickball League, the Watkins Museum of History, and Hernley Associates. The overall goals of this project are very similar to what Ms. Zollner mentioned: cultural preservation, economic benefits, and community legacy for future generations. Our project is centered around celebrating the stadium's community value and historical value. Thousands of community members have used the facility for over 75 years, and the stadium is still used by the Kaw Valley Kickball League. It is a critical piece of the diverse East Lawrence neighborhood. Its historical value stems from the Kansas City Monarchs of the Negro Leagues playing a game there in August 1949 against the semi-pro Lawrence Colts. Baseball Hall of Famer Buck O'Neil managed the Monarchs that season. Decades of American Legion teams also called Municipal Stadium home, including teams with future professional athletes like John Hadel and Steve Jeltz. So possible community-oriented outcomes of our project include using historic rehabilitation tax credits and grants to revitalize the stadium, completing a historic structures report to analyze the concrete seating bowl exploring the return of some of the facility's original features. It used to have in-ground dugouts, a concession stand, those types of items. And then exploring other improvements to Hobbs Park more generally. The Murphy-Brommelsick House as well, exploring that being added to the Kansas Register and the stadium being added to the National Register. So we are very excited to engage with the city on this process. We've had them come to our last meeting, and we will continue to engage the city's process throughout this project. We're excited for what's to come and would appreciate your recommendation onto the City Commission. We also understand there's a Parks and Rec Advisory Board step as well. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Well, I would support that. Commissioners, do you want a discussion? Do you have opinions or?
I'd like to just move forward with the motion if we may.
Okay with that?
All right, go ahead, make a motion.
I move that we recommend to the City Commission that the Hobbs Park be placed on the, okay, I'm confused, on the municipal stadium be placed on the National Register, the Murphy-Brummelsick House be placed on the Kansas Register, and was it Hobbs Park also for the National?
Commissioner Klein, we are recommending to the City Commission that the group that submitted the letter be allowed to raise funds to write a nomination.
Correct.
And to get the permission of the city for the nomination.
Yes, and for the City Council or City Commission to give that approval. So it's not.
Commission.
Yeah.
So move.
Perfect.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. All right, so then we need to do a vote by name. So Commissioner Klein,
Yay.
Commissioner Buchanan. Aye. Commissioner Cunningham,
Aye.
and Commissioner Coleman is aye as well. Passes 4-0. Thank you. All right, so that wraps up that item. Thank you. And now it's time for any disclosure of ex parte communications or declarations of abstentions from specific agenda items by commissioners. Anyone have either of those? Nope, okay. And now committee reports. Do we have any committee reports?
We will have a committee report from the survey committee, but we're going to do that toward the end of the agenda. There's actually an agenda item that is for the survey plan. So they're going to wait and give you all their information then.
Great, okay, we'll do that. Now, time for the consent agenda, which we can take both of these at once if we want. The minutes from the January 16th meeting, along with the design review applications.
Commissioner Klein moves approval of the January 16 minutes as well as the design review applications that have been administratively reviewed and approved by staff.
I will second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Klein and Commissioner Cunningham. Now, time for a vote. Commissioner Klein?
Aye.
Commissioner Buchanan? Aye. Commissioner Cunningham?
Aye.
And Commissioner Coleman is an aye. Okay, item passes. Moving on to Part C, public comment. Is there anyone in the audience or online that might have public comment on items that are not on the agenda tonight? Okay, we see none. So then it's time for public hearing items. Hearing item HRC 24-1031.
And Lynn, would you move that microphone up that's on the desk, please? Thank you.
I can't find it. There we go. Okay.
Real close. Got that one.
Thank you, Kurt. I appreciate it.
Okay, February 20th, that's right. Okay, here we go.
Here we go. Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. The first item on your full commission agenda this evening is 1022 Connecticut Street. This is a certificate of approval application. The property is located in the context area of the August Wall House, also on Connecticut Street. And the request is demolition of the existing structure and new construction. If you'll see in the center of the screen, 1022 is highlighted in this kind of blue-green color, and the wall house is up here at 1004. This is the primary elevation of the structure. We have a couple of different dates for this structure, but it was built somewhere between 1920 and 1930. It has all of its original wood windows. It's not certain that the front porch is original, but it's certainly historic. And we're just going to look a little around the house. You had a really good structural analysis included in this application done by Hernley Associates to point out the structural deficiencies. Staff did make a site visit to the property and found those deficiencies as well. It's a very challenging project because the structure does contribute to the context area, but it is in a significant state of disrepair, and it is not eligible for any financial incentives that might help someone rehabilitate the structure. So just looking around, this is the rear of the structure where the rear porch has been added and screened in at some point. This, you can see the side of the structure here and the stone foundation. There's several information about this condition of the stone foundation in the structure report. Here you can see the other side of the structure, and then again some of the issues with the stone foundation. And here again is a photograph of the foundation. This is showing some of the termite damage and some of the repairs that had been done before to the house. Because the first thing that staff said was, well, you can repair the foundation, you just lift it up and put a new foundation in. But when you start looking at the underneath of the floor and where the structural members join the foundation, there's significant damage there and would almost require a 100% replacement of structure. This is showing that foundation wall from the interior. And there was quite a lot of vandalism on the interior of the structure. There was actually some plaster that was in good shape, but it had suffered water damage and just deterioration over time. If you'll notice in this photograph, you can see that the architectural detailing in the room was just very simple. There was no ornate detailing around the windows or at the ceiling or floor, and staff was super impressed with the condition of these historic wood windows. The applicant is proposing to demolish the structure and build a new single-dwelling residential structure with a footprint of approximately 1,100 square feet. That's quite a bit larger than the existing structure. On the screen is the site plan proposed. for the project, and you'll see that it does have a full-width front porch to help it blend into the neighborhood. There is a rear yard, and the parking would be along the alley. This is the primary elevation of the structure. Again, the applicant has put a nice front porch on it to help it blend in with the neighboring context area and use materials that are also compatible, as is the roof form, and the windows are taller than they are wide, which is also a character-defining feature of the context area. And this is showing one of the sides, and you'll notice the fenestration pattern here. It's a little bit different than what you would have with a historic structure, but it's still using windows that are taller than they are wide and pairing them in some places. And so the overall fenestration pattern is compatible with the context area. And this is showing the rear of the structure. Like the front of the structure, it has shingle detail in the gabled end. And then the other side of the structure. Staff spent a lot of time with this and with the structural report, and even though the existing structure, I feel like it does contribute to the context area, but is in such disrepair that if you were evaluating the context area, it might not be considered contributing because of its failure as far as integrity is concerned. So staff is recommending that you approve the certificate of approval and find that the proposed project meets the standards of review in Chapter 22. And I'd be happy to stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Lynn before we hear from the applicant?
Sean has one.
I have two, Commissioner Klein, I have two similar questions. One is, can the limestone or brick be saved for other projects? And my other question is, can all the gingerbread and the porch posts and so be saved for the new building?
Well, I can answer those. The stone foundation is in such condition that you would not want to use it for anything of significance. You could use it as facing or in a patio or something of that nature. And a lot of the gingerbread that's on the front porch has wood rot and would probably not be the best candidate for a new porch. I did talk to the applicant about the windows and the porch, and if someone wants to contact him, he is willing to give those items away.
Very good, thank you. Would the applicant like to make any statements? Nope. Okay.
Can I, applicant?
Yeah.
As far as the platform for this, there really isn't one being expressed. Would you be open to creating a visual platform so it does seem more like, typically there's an elevated platform where you see exposed stone, right?
Yep.
Would you be open to facing some of the, stopping your siding a little bit earlier and doing a stone facing so it will aesthetically look like it's on a platform?
Yeah, we could lift the basement walls a bit and expose some of the foundation.
Is that, other commissioners, is that?
Are you talking about lifting the floor level or the line of the?
I was thinking just visually, not even lifting anything, just stopping the siding early and doing facing. I guess you'd have to extend, you'd have to extend the
Yeah, you could run
foundation
some
walls.
waterproofing issues that way.
Yeah.
I think that would be a nice improvement to help it even blend in more with the context of the area. And
Because
fit
the
the other
context
two over two
area-
houses that this is kind of emulating.
Yeah.
Context area has raised platforms.
Yes, most of them, not all. But it is definitely more typical of the area.
If you could make that happen,
Well, I think, it could be a waterproofing issue, right? Because your elevation and your depth change from your stone veneer to wood, you're gonna have a big counter flash that's gonna be a big piece of metal looking at you in the face that I don't think you're gonna wanna see.
Well,
So if you counter flash back over the stone, I think that's the only way you could possibly do this.
water table,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, but it'd have to be
Yeah.
a metal water table, right? It doesn't have to be.
well, does it have to be stone, is what I was thinking.
I was thinking just stone-faced. Or I guess it doesn't have to be actual
it's
stone, but
stone-faced,
something
it'll
that
be-
emulates.
Sure, but you're still different, a depth change, right? For your siding to come down in the stone veneer.
Yeah. They do it all the time, and it never barks out as, hey, this is a metal water table.
no,
So
I'm
I know
not-
there's ways to do it that it is not something that's glaring at you.
Yeah. Yep. No, I'm not opposed to doing that.
Step the wall back, maybe, have that ledge
Yeah.
for it to sit on. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Does anyone want to make a motion?
You need public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any public comment on this item?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's KT Walsh. I'm representing the East Lawrence Neighborhood Association tonight. We are very sad that this modest home is coming down. We understand what bad shape it's in, and we wish you had the millions to just fix it all, but of course, it's too late. This is something that we hope the moratorium going before the City Commission will help us forestall these demolitions, at least through Christmas. We'll see what happens. I'm very glad about the front porch, about the gable. I'm also really glad about the design of the windows, and that unlike so many homes that people are building in our neighborhood now, they don't have a blank wall. They have windows on both sides, which is much more like the homes in the neighborhood. I agree that it needs to be raised up a little bit, and an example would be in the 800 block of Rhode Island Street, where they raised up 2 new homes there, and they did the drainage correctly. So I would love to get his contact info for the gingerbread and the windows. I think we can put that out to the neighborhood and someone will want them. That's very nice that he wants to do that. So we're sad, but like the new design. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? No?
And Commissioners, this is a certificate of approval application, and Chapter 22 allows you to condition your approval if that is something that you would like to discuss.
I think approval would be on condition upon creating a visual platform, appropriate water table along with that.
Similar to the existing.
Yeah,
You want to make a motion with that?
sure.
stipulation?
I move that we approve the certificate of appropriateness for 1022 Connecticut Street with the condition that the house gets a visual platform that is faced with stone.
I second. Now we'll take a vote by name. Commissioner Klein?
Commissioner Klein, aye.
Commissioner Buchanan?
Aye.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Aye.
And Commissioner Coleman is an aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to the second public hearing item, RES 250069.
This item is for the accessory structure located at 938 Tennessee Street. This actually came to us through a code review because the structure is so damaged and in such disrepair. It is a contributing structure to the Oread Historic District. It requires a certificate of approval because it is located in a context area, and then it is also in the Oread Neighborhood Design Overlay District and subject to the Oread Design Guidelines. This is showing the property location, and the structure is here along the alley, and you can see it's right on the edge of the historic district. This is the primary elevation of the structure, and you can see the significant lean. Staff did not go inside the structure, and we'll look along the alley. That's a better view. That's straight on the cameras, not at an angle. And then the side that is adjacent to the alley, showing some of the damage. And part of me wonders if maybe a car hit the structure. I'm not sure what happened to it, but the code official is of the opinion that it is unsafe and dangerous and needs to be removed, and he has actually waived the required 30-day wait period. There's an ordinance in the city of Lawrence that when you apply for a demolition permit, there's a required 30-day wait unless it's unsafe and dangerous, and he has declared this unsafe and dangerous and waived that 30-day review period. This is peeking in the structure from the door, and you can see the wall again. Even though this is a contributing structure to the district, it is so damaged and in such bad shape that it no longer retains any integrity of design. And so staff is of the opinion that the project does not damage or destroy the historic district that is listed in the National Register of Historic Places. As for the certificate of approval, staff is of the opinion that it meets the criteria that's outlined in Chapter 22 and recommends that you issue the certificate of approval. And then in the Oread Neighborhood Design Guidelines, it did not meet every design guideline that's outlined in your staff report, but the guidelines give the commission the ability to look at the entire project and any extenuating circumstances that there might be. And staff is of the opinion that there are extenuating circumstances here. Staff did not require a structural analysis or a cost replacement analysis because of the condition of the structure and trying to get this on your February agenda. We just actually got this a couple of weeks ago and trying to move it forward before it falls down and causes harm. So staff is of the opinion that it meets the intent of the Oread Neighborhood Design Guidelines. And I'd be happy to stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Man.
Commissioner Klein?
Do we know what the homeowner's position is?
Well, I've actually been dealing with the contractor, and they do have kind of an idea of a replacement structure, but we did not make them go through that part of the exercise so that we could try to get this through the process more quickly. So staff will likely be doing an administrative review on a one-car garage to go in the same location.
Okay, but is the property owner paying for the demolition, I guess, is one of my
Yes, they hired the contractor.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Buchanan?
Oh, I think you just answered the question I was going to have. Is there a timeline for a submission of a replacement structure?
Chapter 22 doesn't identify a timeline. I know the applicant has sent me a drawing of what they're thinking about, so I don't anticipate it will be long. But the structure is in such a condition that even if they don't submit for a replacement structure, staff thinks it warrants demolition.
Yeah, that's,
And I have a question, just for clarification, because you said you weren't sure if this was caused by a vehicle or a storm or neglect. So this was, the city code officer was driving through the alley and saw this and stopped and inspected it and determined that it was unsafe. And
Yeah, I'm not sure how they got involved with that. They just sent me the email when they realized it was in a historic area and told me that they were waiving the 30-day review period because it was unsafe and dangerous. So I'm not sure. We have a complaint-driven system, so it could have been someone called in a complaint. It could have been when the demolition permit was submitted, they saw that they needed to go out and take a look at it. So I'm not sure exactly how it worked its way through the system.
Okay, if there are no more questions for staff, is the applicant present and do they wish to make a statement? No? Okay, then we'll take public comment if there's comment on this item. All right, then seeing none. Commissioners, do you have a motion or discussion?
Guy, from the photographs, it looks like it's obviously
Yeah.
ready to come down, and it's on the property line, so I think getting it torn down before it does additional damage is a good idea. So I will go ahead and motion to approve.
We're going to need to have three motions, so just start with the first one.
Okay, I will motion to approve RES 250069, the application for demolition of accessory structure.
state law review.
Yeah.
State law review, certificate of approval.
Those are two separate.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. If you go to the agenda item report and the action requested, it has the,
The verbiage.
yeah,
You just read it out loud.
it's at the
At the,
top of
oh,
that.
at the top of this.
Yeah. And right there, yeah, so,
Okay. Yeah, I motion to approve the state law review in accordance with the Secretary of Interior Standards to approve the project and determine that the project does not damage or destroy any historic property included on the National Register of Historic Places or the State Register of Historic Places.
Second?
thank you, Commissioner Cunningham and Buchanan. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Klein,
Commissioner Klein, aye.
Commissioner Buchanan,
Aye.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Aye.
and Commissioner Coleman is an aye. Motion passes 4-0. That was the state law review.
I will motion to approve the certificate of approval that the proposed project meets the standards of review in Chapter 22, Section 22-507, and the design criteria in Chapter 22, Section 22-508, and issue a certificate of approval for the demolition.
Second?
Thank you, Commissioner Cunningham and Buchanan. Commissioner Klein, how do you vote?
Commissioner Klein, aye.
Commissioner Buchanan,
Aye.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Aye.
and Commissioner Coleman is an aye. That passes 4-0.
I will also motion to find that the proposed project meets the development and design standards in the Oread Neighborhood Design Guidelines for the Oread Neighborhood Design Overlay District.
Second?
Thank you. Now a roll call vote. Commissioner Klein,
Commissioner Klein, aye.
Commissioner Buchanan,
Aye.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman is an aye. That also passes 4-0. Thank you. All right, on to item number 3. HRC 240001.
Okay, I'm going to beg your patience with me while we walk through this project. This is a project that has several components, and your charge for each of those components is a little bit different. So staff is going to walk through the whole project, and then we'll talk about the appropriate actions that are available to you for each of those components of the project. This property is 909 and 913 Tennessee Street. It is a certificate of approval and Oread design guidelines. This is the location. We're just down the street from where we were earlier. Here you'll see in the blue outline, the 909 is the vacant parking lot, and then there is a structure at 913 that will be rehabilitated as part of this project, but staff did not see any exterior alterations at this time. If they do have to have exterior alterations, that would be something that staff would review administratively. This is a photograph showing the parking lot where the new structure would be constructed. And this is the proposed site plan. The first thing we're going to look at is the actual construction of a new structure on a vacant lot. And this is showing the new structure here, and this would be the vacant lot. Tennessee Street is on your right. I'm sorry, this is the new structure. Tennessee Street is on your right. You'll notice the parking is in the back of the new structure. This is the primary elevation of the new structure. You'll notice that it does have windows that are taller than they are wide. They are grouped like the Oread design guidelines speak to. It does have some decorative shingling, and the materials are compatible. In the staff report, staff talked a little bit about perhaps the stone is taken a little bit too high on the structure. That kind of helps with that really big mass because it is 3 stories tall. It would be one of the tallest structures in the area, and so having that much heavy stone may impact that massiveness of the structure. And staff also had some concerns about the front porch because it is such a large structure. It may warrant a front porch that maybe is a little bit beefier than this one, but we could talk about that too. But staff was of the opinion that it's great that it has a front porch, but it may need to go to the Architectural Review Committee or work with staff to make it a little bit more appropriate for the structure, and then also to help with that overall massing. This is the side of the structure, and you'll notice that it does have a roof that is located in the Oread overlay district in the context area, and then again appropriately sized windows. And this is the other side of the structure, and again, it has appropriately sized windows. The placement is a little unique, but it works as far as being compatible. And then this is the rear of the structure. Along with this project, the applicant is requesting a minor subdivision. They would like to combine 2 lots into 1 lot, and the purpose of this is to help them with a development plan that they have submitted. If you'll notice on the left side of the screen, The red lines indicate the existing 2 lots. This would be the lot that is vacant with the parking lot, and this would be the lot that has the multi-unit structure on it right now. So basically, this center red line would go away, and you would have a lot that is reflected with the green line on the right of the screen. This is what was submitted with the development plan. It is the same as the site plan, and they're showing the placement of the structure on that vacant lot and its relationship to the 913 Tennessee Street. And the setback, it's a little bit proud of 913 Tennessee Street, and then the parking in the rear along the alley. There's also a rezoning request that goes along with this project. You'll see the properties are highlighted here in the blue color. Currently, they're zoned CS-UC, and that is for commercial strip with an urban conservation overlay district. It's kind of unique because when we were doing the Oread neighborhood design guidelines in the Oread neighborhood plan, it was anticipated that 9th Street would stay commercial and that it would actually push into the residential in those lots that already were vacant, or if they had some other type of commercial structure or a church. And so when the Oread neighborhood plan was done and the overlay districts were drawn, these 2 lots were included in the commercial strip that runs along 9th Street. As you noticed in your staff report, however, historically, this vacant lot has had a residential structure on it. So all the way back to 1905, we see a residential, well, 1905, it did not have anything on it, but by 1912, it not only had a residential structure, but it also had some type of business structure or store that you see both in 1918, and then it's gone and by 1927, but it still has a residential structure on there. Staff did not find the date for the demolition of that structure, and I'm not sure how long the property's been vacant, but this was good research for staff to recommend that the rezoning is, they're requesting to go to multifamily residential rezoning, and that is appropriate for this lot. It's high density, but if you look at transition zones, this high density multifamily would be a transition between the commercial and then the smaller residential structures to the south. So the first item before you this evening is to review the architectural drawings of the new construction. This is a 6-plex. There are 6 units in the structure, and it will be constructed on the vacant parking lot. There are 2 reviews that you are required to do for this new construction. The first is the certificate of approval using the standards in Chapter 22, and the second is an Oread design guideline review. Staff is of the opinion that the proposed new construction meets the design criteria and standards of Chapter 22, and that it also meets the design standards in the Oread overlay district. Staff would suggest that with the certificate of approval that you condition that approval for the applicant to work with staff on the height of the stone and on the front porch. The second item before you this evening is the review of that minor subdivision plat. Chapter 22 allows you to comment on minor subdivisions before the planning director approves them. Typically, we don't like to see smaller lots combined in historic areas, we like to preserve those original lot lines. And in the Oread design guidelines, it actually says that you should not combine lots for higher density development. Again, staff looked back to the beginning of the guidelines that talks about looking at the entire situation and extenuating circumstances. This project actually fits in with some of the strategic goals of this city by providing housing that's income restricted and affordable, and it has a housing trust fund grant for the construction of the structure, so the city is financially committed to this project. And so when staff was looking at the community benefits of having the additional housing and the overall use of that lot has been vacant, and adding a structure there, even though it will be one lot, it's still going to appear like two lots because you'll have two different structures on that one lot. And the reason they're combining those lots is for their development plan so that they can reach that higher density cap to be able to get all of those units in that structure. So for the minor subdivision, staff is recommending that you recommend approval to the planning director, and then also for the Oread design guidelines, find that the proposed project meets the intent of the guidelines. The third item is that preliminary development plan. It's that site plan that you saw showing what's going to be on the ground, where the buildings will be, where the parking is, the sidewalks, all of that information. Again, Chapter 22 allows you to make comment to the planning director, to the planning commission and the city commission on the development proposal. Staff looked at this with Chapter 22 standards and guidelines and was of the opinion that it does meet those standards and guidelines. In addition, with the Oread design guidelines, the new structure and the layout of the structure appears to meet the intent of the Oread neighborhood design guidelines for the development of the property. And then last is that rezoning request I spoke of earlier to take this property from commercial strip with the overlay district to a multifamily use, which is the RM32. It would still have the urban conservation overlay district, and then it would also have the planned development overlay district so that they can reach that higher density. And Chapter 22 allows you to comment on this to the Planning Commission and the City Commission, and staff was supportive of this change in rezoning to reach that higher density, because the structure actually, even though it's really large for the area, it does blend in with the character defining elements of the context area and the overlay district. And with that, I would be happy to stand for any questions you might have.
I have a question, Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
One of the comments that was attached to the application was one of the property owners on the block expressing concern about changes to the width of the alley. Does the proposed project affect the current width of the alley?
It does not. That's a little bit confusing because, let me pull this up. The code actually requires 20 feet for an alley. All of our historic alleys don't meet that code. So when these redevelopment projects go forward, they have to seek a variance if they're replatting or doing a development proposal like this to allow for the alley that's existing, the 16 feet, to be used. So there's no change in width to the alley.
I have a question about the combining of the lots. And maybe you said it and I didn't hear it. Why is it necessary?
If they combine the two lots and have the two structures together on one lot, they can achieve a higher density count with that planned development overlay than they could for a single structure on a single lot.
Because they can get closer, the two structures closer together, or the new one closer.
Because they can have more units per acre.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I don't know, Avery, do you want to chime in on?
Yeah, I think another reason would be to meet the minimum area requirement for the lot under the proposed RM32 district. Individually, the lots zoned RM32 wouldn't meet the minimum site area requirements, but consolidated together, they would. And the site is being designed with shared amenities between the two buildings, so there's going to be some overlapping of the new parking area across what would be the existing property line, dividing the two lots. They're going to be sharing a trash enclosure and then also pedestrian paths throughout the site, and so that's another reason for consolidation of the lots.
Thank you for that. Any other questions for Lynn?
Commissioner Klein?
Commissioner Klein?
Yes. I'm having really hard trouble trying to visualize putting a 3-story home or sixplex in that narrow parking lot. So could you clarify again where people are parking? Because it looks like currently people are parking in the parking lot area, like that long strip that would then contain a building. So I'm wondering where those cars would go. I think they're the cars for 904, but I'm not sure. So I'm confused about where people are parking.
I believe that those are people that are parking for the 9th Street Missionary Baptist Church accessory offices there along 9th Street. They use the parking lot. The parking for these two residential structures will be to the rear of the structures along the alley. The lines are kind of going everywhere, but you can see, well, let me go back. You can see there are parking spaces here, and I believe there are a couple right here. So they do meet their parking requirement, and it's for these two lots, the residents in the two lots. And the applicant is of the opinion that not everybody that's living here will have a car.
So where does 9th Street Baptist staff park?
They have parking along the alley here.
Okay. Oh, that's right, yeah, okay. Because Family Promise is there too, correct, as I recall?
Yes.
In that building?
Yes, and this new structure is part of their program for Family Promise.
Right, okay, great. And the other question I wanted to clarify, I'm not sure if it was the same question that Commissioner Cunningham raised about a couple that lives at 846 Ohio, and they said they are opposed to the project because they use the alley behind the two lots, or the current lot. I'm not unclear. They've got a complete alley here. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm gesturing on my computer screen. I'm sure you can see that. So I'm unclear about what they're talking about, because it seems to me they have a clear alley access, and I don't understand, because they're like 7 houses away, and so I wasn't clear about why they wouldn't have the access they currently have that they're talking about.
There is no change to the alley access. It will still be open for all people to use the alley. There is no proposed change to the width of the alley, but because the city code requires alleys in the city of Lawrence to be 20 feet wide, these existing alley is 16 feet wide, so they have to seek a variance as part of the subdivision application for a reduced width of an alley.
Which means it is currently not wide enough, and they're not going to narrow it anymore, but they're also not going to make it wider.
Correct. They wouldn't have room to make it wider. There's development along each side. In the town plat, these alleys were platted at 16 feet.
But the owners at are the owners of 946 at present in the room, any chance? I'm trying to understand their letter better, because they're saying that they use the alley to access their garage, which is behind 909 and 913. I don't understand why a garage at 846 is 7 houses up.
Well, if they're here, we can hear their public comment, but I believe they've assumed that the alley is changing, but it is not.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to note, from looking at it, at least through the Google Street View, that they do have kind of a peculiar access point that is situated between a utility pole and the garage of their neighboring property, which I think is what makes it difficult for them to access their garage, but that would not be affected by this project.
Okay.
Okay, if there are no more questions for Lynn, is the applicant present?
Hi, Letitia Cole with Paul Werner Architects. I really just want to say thank you for the thorough staff report on a somewhat confusing project and complicated, maybe not confusing, but complicated. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
What's the proposed roofing materials? Or did I just miss that on the elevations?
I think it's noted on there, but it's shingles, asphalt shingles.
I assume that's also on the porch.
Yes.
And can you talk to us about the application of the stone to the front facade that kind of wraps around a little bit?
I mean, I saw, in the recommendations that we could maybe lower that. We're totally open to that.
And then the size of the porch, were there restrictions you were trying to work around that resulted in this size?
Yeah, we're certainly open to talking about the size of the porch. It already, I think we were concerned because it's already encroaching on what is currently the standard for the setback. So we were just kind of keeping it small for that reason, but we can certainly make it.
What about the width? Could you extend the width of it so there's, more space by the doors?
Yeah. We've got to have a ramp on the side. So on the south side, we have to ramp up, and that's our access from the parking in the back there. So we could look if we could, we probably couldn't take the porch all the way out, but just to make that turn, because it's a pretty tight corner right there. But we could certainly make it wider and look to see how much wider we could make it.
That would be good.
Okay.
On the stone that wraps around the corners, maybe I was looking at something else.
Yeah, that's the question I just asked. The first
Yeah.
one.
Would it be possible, I'm not so opposed of it on the front elevation being as high as it is, but on the north and west elevate, or not, west and south? South.
Like north and south?
Sorry.
That's okay on the sides? Say sides.
Yes. Can you extend it, lower it and extend it further back?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's quite a bit of flexibility in terms of where we can start and stop and the height of that.
Okay. That way it's lower than the windows, but you could bring it back a little further,
Yeah.
perhaps?
Okay,
Okay, thanks.
thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? No? All right. Well, we have quite the task in front of us. I think we have 4 things to consider, and each thing has 2 different motions. Is that right? Does it have to?
Except for the rezoning, I think it only has one.
Okay.
The rezoning only has the Chapter 22 recommendation to the Planning Commission and the City Commission. The Oread design guidelines don't require HRC review for rezonings.
All right. Before we start that, commissioners, do you understand the task ahead of us?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
I'd like me to make a step. So Lynn, are we doing 3?
4 and 2
We're
parts.
doing 4 motions, so I'm willing to tackle that if you like.
I do have one question before we go forward. With the potential of design changes to the porch and the stone, does that need to go to ARC?
And I think that only affects the first.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Staff was recommending that staff work with the applicant, but certainly if you want to send it, we have an ARC of 1 right now. And so we're happy to send that to the ARC if that's the wish of the commission.
And we're really talking about 2 items
Right.
that.
Yeah, just work with staff.
Yeah, I'm comfortable because I know she's going to send it to me and say, is this
Yeah.
what you understood?
But does that need to be part of the motion? The first, the certificate of approval and the Oread design guideline motion to work with staff
Yes.
on those 2 elements?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like me to try a motion?
Sure.
Go for it.
Okay, Commissioner Klein, I move that HRC finds that the proposed project meets the standards of review in Chapter 22, Section 22507, and the design criteria in Chapter 22, Section 22508, and issue the certificate of approval for the proposed project with the condition the applicant work with staff to refine the height of the stone on the structure and the design elements of the front porch.
I will second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Klein and Commissioner Cunningham. We will take a roll call vote. Commissioner Klein,
Aye?
Commissioner Buchanan,
Aye.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman is an aye, 4-0. That one passes. All right, next part.
Commissioner Klein also finds that the proposed project meets the intent of the development and design standards in the Oread Neighborhood Design Guidelines for the Oread Neighborhood Design Overlay District.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Klein and Commissioner Buchanan. Take a roll call vote. Commissioner Klein,
Aye?
Commissioner Buchanan,
Aye.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Aye.
and Commissioner Coleman is an aye. That one carries 4-0. Okay, next is the review of the minor subdivision replat and consolidation of the 2 lots to 1 lot.
So Commissioner Klein recommends approval of Plat -24-1010 to the Planning and Development Services Director.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Klein and Commissioner Buchanan. Commissioner Klein, how do you vote?
Aye?
Commissioner Buchanan,
Aye.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Aye.
and Commissioner Coleman is an aye. That one passes 4-0. Next is the Oread
And-
Design Guidelines.
Commissioner Klein moves that we find that the proposed project meets the intent. I just read that. No, I didn't. Okay, finds that the proposed project meets the intent of the Oread Neighborhood Design Guidelines for the Oread Neighborhood Design Overlay District and recommend approval to the Planning and Development Services Director.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Klein and Commissioner Buchanan. Take a roll call vote. Commissioner Klein?
Aye.
Commissioner Buchanan?
Aye.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Aye.
And Commissioner Coleman is an aye. That one also passes 4-0. All right, next up is the review of the preliminary development plan.
Commissioner Klein moves that HRC recommend to the Planning Commission and the City Commission approval of the preliminary development plan DP 24-1007.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Klein and Commissioner Buchanan. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Klein?
Aye.
Commissioner Buchanan?
Aye.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman is an aye. That one carries 4-0. And next is the Oread design guidelines related to the plat, or the development.
Yep. Commissioner Klein moves HRC action finds that the proposed project meets the intent of the Oread Neighborhood Design Guidelines for the Oread Neighborhood Design Overlay District and recommends approval to the Planning Commission and the City Commission.
I'll second that. Take a roll call vote. Commissioner Klein?
Aye.
Commissioner Buchanan?
Aye.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Aye.
And Commissioner Coleman is an aye. That one carries 4-0. And then the last item, the rezoning agreement.
Commissioner Klein moves that HRC action recommends to the Planning Commission and the City Commission approval of Z 24-1020 for 909 and 913 Tennessee Street from Commercial Strip, UC, Oread Neighborhood Design Overlay District, to RM 32, UCPD, which is multi-dwelling residential in the Oread Neighborhood Design Overlay Plan Development Overlay District.
Second. We'll take a vote. Commissioner Klein?
Aye.
Commissioner Buchanan?
Aye.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Aye.
And Commissioner Coleman is an aye. That one also passes 4-0. Thank you, and good luck.
And thank you for again, for increasing affordable housing.
I can only hear the microphone. Did you just?
Okay. Moving on to the last item. The map, the proposed historic survey plan.
And staff's going to turn it over to the survey committee and let them give you a report and recommendations.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Cunningham here, activity report on the Historic Surveys Subcommittee. The subcommittee has met over the past few months to identify priorities for future historic surveys. In a report given at the December 2024 meeting, 12 neighborhoods were identified in ranked order. The commission discussed the activity report but did not take action at that meeting. After the most recent subcommittee meeting, the committee agreed on 5 neighborhoods as top priorities for future historic surveys over the next 5 years. These neighborhoods in ranked order are East Lawrence as the #1 priority, followed by Babcock and the East Centennial neighborhood, followed by the Pinckney neighborhood, highlighted in purple on the map, or lavender on the map. The 4th priority is the North Lawrence neighborhood in the light orange on the map, and then the 5th priority is the Brook Creek neighborhood in the light green on the east side, on the right part of that map. This is a slight change, but not much change from the top priorities that were identified in December, but it was just consolidated to focus on the top 5. The committee also recommends a biennial reassessment that is every 2 years of historic survey priorities. And these recommendations take into consideration older surveys that may be out of date, the Living in East Lawrence essay prepared in 2010 by Commissioner Buchanan and other historic preservation specialists, and a forthcoming capital improvement plan that would survey all homes built before 1980. And I would welcome input from other commissioners as well as public comment, or I can recommend to the commission that we take action to approve these survey priorities.
So if I can restate, you said number 1 would be East Lawrence, 2 is Babcock, 3 is Pinckney, 4 is North Lawrence, and 5 is Brook Creek?
Yes.
Okay. And review the survey priority order every, how often?
2 years.
2 years. Yeah, so thinking we'll get through 1 or 2, and then we'll need to set the priority for the rest of them.
Right. Or, upon review, determine that the priorities that were identified previously are still the priorities. The biggest change between the prioritized neighborhoods from December and now is that Schwegler was identified as one of the top 5 priorities, and that has kind of moved down. I think, we think that as a subcommittee, that beyond these top 5 will kind of carry us for the next 5 to 6 years. And then when that time comes, we can really kind of see what has not been surveyed, changes in the development of the city, and reassess as needed. But I think it would be ill-advised to wait 5 years to do a reassessment.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess we're waiting on a motion, I guess? I don't
Yeah.
know.
You
Okay.
might want to just ask for public comment.
Yeah. Is there any public comment on this item?
I feel like the cat that swallowed the canary, but I'm very pleased that East Lawrence has been moved up to number 1. And now we just need to find some money, so thank you.
Okay. You want to make a motion?
I guess I move that we accept the proposed hierarchy of survey areas and a biennial review of those priority areas and adopt this as our survey plan.
Second? We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Klein?
Aye.
Commissioner Buchanan?
Aye.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Aye.
And Commissioner Coleman is an aye. So that passes 4-0. Thank you. Are there any miscellaneous items?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Do we have an update on the Dowdell and Rice markers?
We do not have an update for this evening. I am hopeful that we will have one at your March meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no more items on the agenda, we will adjourn. Thank you.